Campmeeting in Edwardsville. And Brother Green preached for an hour and a half. And I've never been so hungry. Not for the Word of God, mind you, but for that chicken fried steak in the cafeteria. And it was so hot that a kid could break the popsicle stick on the back of that handheld paper fan just trying to keep from drowning in sweat. And I'm sure that God had a lot to teach us about Joseph and his brothers. But I'm wondering if he meant for us to learn it all in that hothouse tabernacle at that particular camp meeting in Edwardsville, Illinois, 1964. And there was that time Brother Cliff Friesen was preaching, walking back and forth across the platform, and that mouse walked across the rafters up above his head. Every time he turned, so did the mouse. And he couldn't understand why people were laughing, because this was serious stuff. And there was fire and brimstone on the horizon, and the hour was short. But he couldn't see the mouse, and we could. And there was that old lady who dropped her glasses into the pit in the outhouse. And Billy had to hang upside down and reach down and pull them out. And we were disgusted. But Billy will never forget it. And neither will that old lady, because when you're old, you need your glasses to read the Bible. Particularly when the preacher's preaching until 1:30 in the afternoon, when the humidity is 94%. And Brother Jim, he caught a turtle, made turtle soup, and we ate it, and said it tasted like chicken. But I thought it tasted like chicken had been marinated in swamp water. But when you're 12 years old and all you have to do is eat or listen to preaching, you're probably going to eat, even if it is turtle soup. And I saw cicadas for the first time. Those odd little bugs that crawl out of the ground every 17 years. And they could sing, I'm telling you. You could hear them over the sound of Brother Crabtree at the very peak of the altar service. And they sounded like angels or bagpipes droning. And I saw their skeletons attached to the trees, and I pulled them off to scare the girls. And it was kind of like the resurrection, except it happened every 14 years. And maybe God sends them to remind us that just because we're buried in the cold ground doesn't mean we're going to have to stay there. And Brother Green, he died last year, and he couldn't talk much for the last 15 years of his life because he had a stroke and couldn't preach a lot. But he could pray, just like he did back then. And I wonder if we needed to hear that sermon back in 1964 in that camp meeting in Edwardsville, because he had to get all those sermons out before the stroke. And there is a beetle that lives in Illinois called the bombardier beetle. And it mixes acid in its thorax. And when confronted by an enemy, it arches its back and fires a shot to immobilize its foe. And camp meeting was like that, listening to those old preachers. And it gave you an arsenal against the enemy. Something to mobilize the old devil when he started to gnaw on your leg. And sometimes in life, you need to listen clear into your lunch hour. to fill up your thorax.